Sam Raber. I'm from Holden, Missouri, and I graduated from Holden High School in 1951. I've been a resident of the Holden community for 87 years. I pulled 2 terms in the military, and the first time I was 20 years old, just barely 20 years old, and I was drafted. So, I took basic training I was inducted in Kansas City, took basic training in Fort Riley, Kansas, and from there I was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. You didn't really have any conversations. In those days, I was going to college, and I went a year at the University of Missouri, and then I transferred and went to Central Missouri State, and I got drafted. I reported, I think it was June the 4th of 1953, of course, so I got to finish out this semester. Mm-hmm. In those days, if you were drafted and you didn't have a deferment, and it was in the middle of Central Missouri State had a quarter system. If it was in the middle of the quarter, you just lost out, and you reported. I was inducted in Kansas City, and then we went to camp by train to Camp Crowder, Missouri, and we were issued all of our initial clothing. You got initial clothing issued, and we were there, I think, about a week, and then we went by bus to Fort Riley, Kansas, and at that time it was 16 weeks of infantry basic training. Next assignment was to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. That was just a replacement company for the 3rd Army area, and I was sent to the 82nd Airborne Division. And they can send you to an airborne division, they cannot make you go to parachute school. And but I volunteered and went to parachute school at Fort Benning, Georgia, and served the rest of my time at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The Korean War was going on at that time, and it was basically over in my 3rd week of basic training. So I never left the States on my first assignment. Later on, at that time, when you were drafted or if you enlisted, you had an 8-year obligation. So at the end of my 8 years, I had stayed in the National Guard unit, and I ended up retiring from the reserves. Rank was Command Sergeant Major, and I was a Sergeant Major of a Special Forces Battalion. So when I came back from active duty, I enrolled in college again, and I graduated in Central Missouri State. And when I got back in the Army, I never had any problems and made good grades and graduated from Central Missouri State. Then I worked for a local company, Stahl Specialty Company, in Kingsville, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And I went to work for them while I was still going to college. And it was a great company to work for. And I ended up through the years in sales and engineering. And we had customers, and I think I don't remember now, 34 states or something. And then we had customers all over the world. So I always liked to travel, and I was very fortunate that probably once or twice a year in the last 25 years I was with them, I'd go to Europe, and I've been to Australia, New Zealand, even on a tour I visited customers in South Africa and Israel. The Israel, I've been to Israel a couple times, but there was a tour you could take and make a parachute jump with the if you'd ever been in a free world parachute unit, and make a parachute with the Israeli Army, which I did. Wow. And really interesting. And then I made a parachute jump with the South African Army in South Africa one time, and Canada went up there. So anyway, being big in a parachute unit was more interesting than being in a non-parachute unit. So I took a tour to Belgium one time, and in that tour, it had nothing to do with the military, but you could sign up to make a parachute jump with the Belgians, and it was a balloon jump. What they did, they put a balloon up to about 1,100 feet on a cable, and there was a platform underneath, and you parachute out off of that platform. So it was interesting. Certain, like they used to say, you were allowed one mistake, and if the jump master or the rigger didn't catch it, well, that would be your last one. It's been an interesting life, and people that you guys graduate, a lot of my kids will go on to high school or go on to college, and a lot of them will. But my advice is don't run up a big debt going to college, unless you're going for specialized. You're going to be a doctor or an engineer or something. Then
Sure.
But if you're just going for arts and science, which I did, I wonder sometimes if it was worth the expense. I guess it was. I loved college.